Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I am really looking forward to this conversation today with Julie Boyer. Julie, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to stay connected with you as you and I have been connected for a bit now in the gratitude world. Please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us about yourself and what it is that you're passionate about and how it is that you show up in the world.
Oh, Jory, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here and to have the opportunity to connect with your listeners, especially around gratitude, which is what brought us together in the first place.
Yes.
I am really passionate about gratitude. I'm an intuitive business and health coach. I'm also the host of the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast, and I'm a landscape photographer. And I've turned my sunrise photography into products that kind of reflect what it means to wake up with gratitude. And so gratitude for me has been a real thread throughout my life for definitely for more than a decade. It's been really something that I've been building my life around. Absolutely.
Well, and for those of you, obviously everyone's just listening, but I get the beauty of looking over Julie's shoulder at her beautiful photography of these morning sunrise, water and landscape scenes that are just, I feel such a sense of like, I can exhale just by looking at those images. So thank you for producing what you're producing. But why is it that gratitude became such a core value for you and a core practice? What was your journey around discovering the importance of gratitude in your life?
Yeah, so I was first introduced to this concept that I remember through the movie The Secret, which came out back in 2007. And it taught kind of this idea of gratitude and expressing your gratitude. And I started writing in a gratitude journal at that time. And I was inspired by what Bob Proctor had said, which was you write in the present tense something that you have yet to manifest on the physical plane. So I started doing that. And I did that for a while. I had these secret gratitude journals that they had printed. On one side of the page, you would write everything you're grateful for that day. And on the other page, you would write all your gratitude intentions. So I did that probably for about a year or so. But for some reason, like many of us, I stopped doing it. And I don't know why. I just did. So fast forward a couple of years, went through a pretty difficult personal time, had some big changes in my business, had my daughter, all these things happened. And I went to a live event, to a convention. Remember when we used to go to live events? Remember that time?
Real in-person events where you got to meet people and shake their hands and hug them at the end. And I know, right?
I went to a real live event with Sean Aker. He is the author of the book, The Happiness Advantage. And in his workshop, he was teaching us how to shift our mindset in 21 days. And one of the suggestions he gave was to start a gratitude practice. Now, this was in 2011, and he said to start your gratitude practice in your phone. So this is like pre-release, like early smartphone. And he's like, write 3 things.
Just barely coming off a flip phone where you had to hit the button 3 times for each letter.
T9 typing, right? So we're just at that point where we can like type in our phones. And he said, so you write 3 things that you're grateful for specifically for that day. And the challenge is you're not repeating it the next day. So you're being specific about your gratitude and you're not repeating it. And you do that for 21 days. So I was like, well, this is cool. I had a tablet, a BlackBerry tablet, which nobody knows what that is anymore, but it was like one of the first non-Apple tablets. And so I had my tablet with me. So I started writing in my tablet 3 things specifically that I'm grateful for. Like that night I started right away. And then I added that Bob Proctor gratitude intention, which I kind of kept the same until it manifest. And it was this business goal that I had been wanting to achieve. It was actually one of the reasons why, like, I'd kind of been in a slump for a couple of years because I had been wanting to achieve this big business goal and it just like wasn't happening. And so I started this practice, and then 12 weeks later, I accomplished the business goal, like a big business goal.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this gratitude stuff works. So I kept doing it. And then about 12 weeks later, just timing wise, we manifested our first family home.
Wow.
So that's sort of when I knew that this gratitude thing was definitely working for us.
And what was it that you really feel created this shift? Was it a shift in mindset? Was it allowed you a shift in belief in yourself? Because, a lot of, and I've got a really good mix of woo-woo in me, and I love, I'm also, I consider myself a master manifester. Like, I've manifested almost everything I've set the intention for. And I don't say that to brag. It's truly, I think it happens easier when you're in alignment and you have that clarity and you're getting rid of the discourse of the negative self-talk, right? There's a lot of things that go into that. So what do you think it was about doing these practices? Because there's a lot of people out there who are like, I do all that and I haven't manifested anything. I'm really grateful. I also hear a lot of people who have the underpinning of negativity in their gratitude. So I think energetically that gets in the way. But, I believe to manifest, it's intention plus action, right? We can't just sit completely back and say, okay, universe, I've set the intention, hand it over. What is it for you that you feel was really able to allow you to manifest? That the gratitude, like, what did it actually make you feel different or think different or look at the world differently?
So I definitely had been in the personal development world for some time. And so I was doing definitely some mindset work otherwise as well. And I was working, I was building business, I was reaching out to contacts, I was creating, different connections. And the gratitude piece for me, I think the gratitude piece is the piece that's missing for a lot of people, is that they forget the importance of raising your vibration and looking for things to be grateful for. Now, this was really the beginning of my journey. So I can look back now and kind of see kind of, how it all worked out. But at the time I was just writing 3 things. I was really like, I stuck to it. I also, at that time, this part of my life, I had started to explore my faith more. I hadn't been to church ever really in my life. And when my daughter was born, which was about a year before all this happened, I felt this urge to get her baptized in a Catholic church. I don't know why. Like, I'm French. A lot of people are Catholic. That was kind of what it felt like the right thing for me. And so I started going to church and not knowing anything really. Like, I just started attending church. And I do believe that faith part for me, because I had always had faith in the universe. And that, everything was working out for my greatest and highest good. But at that time in my life, I needed faith. I needed more faith. And so I found that through the church. That was also part of what was happening in my life at that time. Interestingly, today, having moved across the country and like left behind my community of the church and everything, we don't attend church at all anymore. That doesn't mean there's not faith in our life. That doesn't mean there's not God in our life, but it just looks different.
Sure.
So I would say for me at that time, the combination of faith plus gratitude plus action is what led me to achieving what I did. Now, that doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen out of the blue. Like, one of the big things that it was like one moment that led to this business goal is that I got a text message. So I was on a vacation where I was like, I'm turning off my phone for 3 days. And I turned on my phone to just text my then husband. I guess he was home with our daughter and he was meeting us a couple of days. So I was like, I needed to turn on the phone to see where they were at. And a text came in from a friend I hadn't heard from in probably 3 or 4 years. And he said, listen, I really need you to come talk to the owner of my gym here. We really want to bring these products into our gym. Like, when can you meet us? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't have my phone on all weekend. And here I go. And I messaged him. And that one text message and then that one meeting like turned into a massive business growth catalyst. Wow. So, and he wasn't on my radar. He wasn't on my list of people to talk to. Like, he just came into my life. And that's kind of where I see the gratitude and the gratitude intention is it makes room for like the magic and miracles.
Yeah. It's so much easier said than done for a lot of people. And I know, since my book came out in earlier this year, people have said, especially during the pandemic, there's so much going on in our political climate, in our global warming climate, in our COVID world. It's just really hard to find something to be grateful for. And that negativity bias that we're all wired for can easily take over and can cloud the ability to tune into the good. So what would you say? I mean, I know how I've responded to this question, but I'm curious how you would respond to people when they're like, you know what, Julie, I've got nothing good going on in my life right now.
I would invite you to use this strategy that is often used for anxiety. So you probably already know it, but it's take a pause and look around and find 5 things that you see that you're grateful for. And then I believe it's 4 things you can touch, right? Like it might be as simple as just like running your hands through your hair, or like the cozy blanket that's around you. Or if you're driving, just like touching the seatbelt, you know, that's security. And then 3 things that you can hear. So what's the sound around you? Maybe it's the sound of quiet. And then 2 things that you can smell. So I just put some essential oil, like a balm on before we start, because it's called Calm Response. So it helps me stay calm when I'm doing podcasts. So what smells are you grateful for? And then the last thing is a taste. So what's something you can taste in your mouth, or just like recalling a taste, did you just have this like delicious breakfast? Or maybe you can even like project like what you're going to have for lunch and like be grateful for that moment and taste that. You can taste food without actually tasting it, right?
Oh yeah.
You can put that in your mind. So that's a simple way to just remember that you don't have to go far to look for gratitude. And it's this understanding that gratefulness is like a state of being. So gratitude is a response to an action that's happened, right? We give thanks for something. Gratefulness is a state of being. And I learned this from Christy Nelson. She wrote a great book called Wake Up Grateful. She's the executive director of the Network for Grateful Living, so grateful.org. And she explains this, like gratefulness is really a state of being. And it's acknowledging that right here, right now, we can already be in gratefulness, right? No matter how hard, because we all have the hard things.
Yeah.
It's been a hard year for all of us in a different way. And my hard isn't any different. Like it's different, but doesn't mean it's not as hard or not as difficult. So,
right. And I always say, you can't compare suffering. Suffering has no hierarchy. And that often prevents people from owning their hard, because it's like, well, it's not as hard as that person. It's like, yeah, if it's yours, then it's real, it's valid. It's, own it. There's no comparison needed. And I love that. It's kind of how I describe mindfulness, right? Mindfulness isn't something you do or something you add to your to-do list. It's something that you have on your to-be list. Who do you want to be in the world? How do you want to show up? What's the quality of presence you're bringing to each moment? And so to say gratefulness is that state of being is such a beautiful thing. And I love the differentiation that gratitude is in response to something that happened, but gratefulness is just an energy, right? It's an, as I hear that, I think about it feels like an option for a mindset shift.
Yeah. Because you can just choose to live that way. And it's not easy. I mean, no. I definitely get, my husband reminds me, he's like, aren't you the gratitude guru? Which is a name I don't love, but I named my website, my Facebook page that a long time ago, and I haven't been able to change it. So I don't want to be better than or more than. I'm in this practice just like you are. Yeah. I'm learning all the time. And it might be easier for me to be grateful. It might be easier for me to practice because I've had more practice. Like
you've just been doing it longer.
Yeah. Well, it's a decade. Like it's been truly a decade long journey where I've really been consistently developing my different practices and living with gratitude in a very different way than I did when I very first started that practice. Like even when I wrote my book, 30 Days of Gratitude, a couple of years after I started my practice. And I really, that book came out of a personal tragedy where I experienced my first miscarriage. So I have a daughter, she is 11, and after her, I had 2 miscarriages. And after the first one, was at 15 weeks where you're like, everything's fine, but it wasn't. And I had a very traumatic experience with it. I miscarried at home, had to go to the hospital, had emergency surgery. It was, a whole thing, literally like went and happened super fast. And I just need to pause for a sec. I'm sorry, not because of the story. I apologize. I'm hoping
no worries.
Clip that, but the dog was pawing at the door and like growling. So
you know what? I'm not even going to edit that out because that's real life, people. You know what? We have interruptions, we have distractions, we have chaos, and it's about the grace and how we say, this is me showing up human. So I'm grateful for the interruptions because it gave everyone a moment of silence and pause. And it's also showing we're human. So you're human as
we'll keep
your
going.
dog.
Awesome. Yeah.
But
and
it did come at an interesting moment of like, is this a pause in your story? Like, no, it's just the dog.
Yeah, it's just the dog. Oh, because you know what? And this is the thing. I've shared the story often enough that I can say it without too much personal emotion. It doesn't mean that the story doesn't affect me. It's just that I've been comfortable sharing it now for a long time that it's easier to share. But, you know, after that night, like I got home from the hospital and I wrote in my gratitude journal. And so I was like, if I can write in my gratitude journal on what is at that time the hardest day of my life, I need to share this with others. So I wrote the book, 30 Days of Gratitude, in the month that followed. It was kind of my, I would say it was kind of my therapy, like writing it all down and sharing these ways. And I would get downloads of chapters while walking. Like it was really aligned. So the book came out, 4 months after the miscarriage. And I was like, okay, well, this is it. Like my culmination of my gratitude journey, which is not true. Right? Like, I don't know if you felt like that too. It's like this, you're like, wow, this is great. I got a book about gratitude. Like, I get it. I'm all, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Nope. I'm still on this journey with all of you too. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It brings up something that I think there's a couple of different areas I want to bring our gratitude conversation to. And the first one is people make the assumption, and I'm wondering if you agree, that we only can be grateful about the good things in our life. And I think this is a really good kind of extension of what you just shared. People don't recognize the gratitude we can have for the hard moments, because choosing gratitude for the hard moments doesn't mean you liked the hard moment, right? It's like, I always say, when we have to come to accepting something doesn't mean you like it. It just means you stop resisting it. And a lot of our suffering increases as a function of not accepting what's here. Accepting it doesn't mean you like it. It just means you stopped fighting it, right? So to have gratitude for the dark moments or the difficult or the pain points, to me, is an opportunity to say either, there's a couple options there, right? Either I'm grateful that moment didn't last forever. I thought it would. I thought this pain was never going to end, and I'm grateful that that pain was impermanent. Or I can be grateful for, wow, here's what I learned from that. And from that hard moment, I'm able to actually see more joy, because I now know the flip side of joy, which is the suffering. So my suffering can awaken me to more joy. Or I especially love, being really grateful for the difficult people in our lives. And people are like, why would I want to do that? That is hard. That's shitty. They're, treating me terrible, or they are completely unaligned with my values. And to that, I would respond, well, to be grateful for the difficult people in our life reminds us of who we don't want to be. Yeah. So for everyone listening, gratitude is not just about looking for the good. It's also acknowledging the growth in the pain and what those difficult moments help you to dwell your energy and mind and attention on too.
Yeah. And that's kind of where like toxic positivity was born. It's like whitewashing everything with gratitude. And that's definitely not what I teach and what I believe in. So on that night, I remember what I wrote was that I was grateful that my daughter was at daycare, right? Because if she only went to daycare a couple of days a week, so it could have been a day I can't imagine if she'd been home. She was only 2. So thank God my daughter was not home. I was so grateful for that. I was grateful that the police were able to break down the front door, because I was home alone in, upstairs in my bathroom, and they had to break down. I was grateful I had my phone beside me, because this was like, 2013, like, again, you're not obsessed with your phone the way it used to, but my phone was nearby so I could call for help. And then I was grateful for the way that, you know, the nurses took care of me at the hospital. And I was grateful that one of my very best friends was able to come, like she just came and helped, and all these crazy, like I was finding things to be grateful for in like a really terrible tragedy. And so for me, what I teach is that the reason we start a gratitude practice today, and it doesn't have to be the gratitude journaling. You know, I just shared a podcast recently on 21 different ways to share our gratitude. I shared it on World Gratitude Day. So there's so many different ways to have this as a practice. But if you're choosing this journaling or writing about your gratitude, it's that you do it now when things are okay, so that when things are hard, because they're going to be hard, you can find a way to find gratitude of this situation. So I'm not grateful that I went through a tragedy and a miscarriage and a surgery and all these crazy things. That's not what I'm grateful for. I found other things to be grateful for that day. Now, with hindsight of many years, having been through 2 miscarriages, I have gratitude that we have 1 child and not 3. Because for our family, that's what works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can look back at the losses and be like, well, you know what? We are meant to be a family of 3. And I'm happy about that. I'm not happy I lost those children, right? I'm just able to look at today and say, well, our life would be very different if we had 3 children instead of 1. I don't know that I ever would have moved across the country. It would have been a lot harder. And I look at where I live right now and how much I love my life and the nature that surrounds me. And, you know, yesterday I went to sunrise at the beach. Then I went for a hike at like in the forest in like the afternoon for like whatever, 45 minutes. And then in the evening, I went back to the beach to see if there was a sunset, to a different beach.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. And you've made it a priority to embody the environment around you to help bring you that joy and that gratitude.
Yeah.
Well, and you touched on something, Julie, that I wanted to kind of take our conversation to, which is the difference between toxic positivity and gratitude. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I was going to mention it. People have such a misunderstanding at times of what that toxic positivity is and how it gets confused with the gratitude practice. So I know how I describe it, but let's hear what you would say first, and then I'll add on to anything of any other ways that how I talk about it or teach it.
Well, I think both you and I are really clear that expressing our emotions is a healthy thing.
Yes.
So all of the emotions, right? Expressing your emotions, allowing them to flow through your body is a healthy thing. Toxic positivity is when you're angered, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're disappointed, and then you just bottle it up and you're like, oh, but I'm grateful that I'm alive and I've got a home and I've got a family. And you ignore all these real emotions that are real.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one day you blow up and everyone's like, but she's such a positive and happy person. It's like, no, this person didn't process any of their emotions. And then that's toxic. That's what the toxic part is. If you don't process your emotions, all of them, and that goes for the other side. How many people do you know that don't celebrate the wins? Like they just, they achieve something and they just gloss right by and move right on to the next thing. Same deal. So for me, really processing our emotions and allowing them. So I just recently had a personal experience where a lot happened in a 2-month period of time, a lot, like so much, and a lot of loss, a lot of things were lost in my life. And I was feeling this grief. And I felt a little bit guilty because I wasn't grieving. No one had died. No one was sick, but I had these losses that I hadn't really acknowledged. So instead of whitewashing them and continuing with I still have my gratitude practice, but these feelings were just not going away. So what did I do? I journaled about them, right? I wrote everything down, all these feelings of loss. I wrote them all down and I expressed like why I was upset about these losses. Then I made an appointment with my counselor. I spoke to her and we talked through a lot of these things. And then she gave me strategies and ideas of how I could process these emotions as well. I did a full moon ceremony around it and letting go. And like the next day, you know, abundance flying into my business.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And, you know, I love how you defined there that the toxic part is the not processing the emotions. When we think of something toxic, we think, the word I think of is poisonous, right? It's bad for us. It's harmful for us. So it's an interesting phrase, toxic positivity, because one might question, well, why is it bad to ever be positive? Well, it's bad if you are, like you said, it's like the spiritual bypassing. If you are overlooking what is right here, what is right inside, in an effort to just skip the storm and get the rainbow.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how I define toxic positivity. It's like, in order to get the rainbow, recognize the storm has value.
Yeah.
We need to be here because also, can I just accept the storm was what here, right? Part of that is acceptance.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of that for me is, can I have compassion that this is a really hard storm? Can I have compassion that this emotion hurts? Can I have compassion that I may not know how to navigate through this difficult emotion? And then I can have gratitude for what I can learn, what I can grow from, the fact that this storm was not permanent, what I was able to get through, my resilience, my adaptability, my strength. Like, there's so much there to be able to harness. And the reason people just look for the rainbow is because it feels icky to sit with those difficult emotions. And a lot of people aren't role modeled or taught how to do it, or that it's just simply part of being human, that we have to do this to begin with.
Yeah, this ability to have a space to express our emotions safely is a very new concept. So,
yes,
I have a daughter, she's 11, and, she just said to me, she's like, you made me mad. And I was like, no, I didn't. I said, you might be upset and angry, and you are allowed to have your emotions, but my actions and my words didn't make you act in any way. You are in control of your emotions. So if you're mad and upset, then be mad and upset. But it's not, I didn't do that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, we say this to children, but how many adults need this reminder?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's about taking ownership.
I'm so mad. I'm so angry. It's like, you made me mad. You did this to me. It's like, well, actually,
yeah,
generally it's not about you. I think we forget sometimes that the way that we express ourselves to other people, it's about us. And then the way you receive it, that's about you. So we may have come to a situation in a way that was meant to be loving and kind and generous. And the way the person received it was totally not at all what our intention was. So that doesn't make it our fault. We didn't make them feel that way, but that's kind of the lesson that we're taught, is like, you've made me feel this way.
Yeah. Because we don't know how to own those emotions.
Because they're icky, like you said, right?
Yeah, they're hard.
Yeah.
They're hard. They're really hard. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, given that this episode is coming out in the month of November. So we have, Thanksgiving. And for the past couple of years, I have always posted about a term I wanted to really have take off a lot more than it ever has. But the term is, instead of Thanksgiving, it's thanks living. And, if we just look at the language around that, of instead of just giving thanks for others or giving thanks for what we have, just to live, it's kind of what you were saying of gratefulness as a state of being. And that's, another way of that I think of the word thanks living. And so what would be some of your, as we just begin to kind of wrap up, because I think we've had so much good ways of naming what it feels like to be in thanks living. But it sounds like for you, nature is a big piece of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny that you mentioned this, is that you would think that Thanksgiving holiday would be like something I look forward to every year. And in a way, I don't, because it's all about all of your gratitude on one day of the year. And I dream of a world where everyone chooses to wake up with gratitude. Thanks living. You live in this way. You wake up knowing that today is a gift. It is not promised. And there are millions of people that wake up every day that don't get to wake up every day, from all kinds of different circumstances, and they're mostly out of their own control. So to me, if you think of thanks living, that's my mantra. I dream of a world where we all choose to wake up with gratitude. The first things I say, Jory, when I wake up in the morning is, thank you for this gift of another day and the opportunity to be of service to others and to make a difference in this world.
Yeah.
that's thanks living. That's how I choose to live.
Yeah.
Am I perfect all the time around it? Absolutely not. Do I get
Well,
into it?
you are human after all, Julie. This is the
True.
thing. We're all just human. So there's no perfection in being human. And it's, it's always cracked me up. And I know that you're up in Canada, but, here in the US, Thanksgiving's always on Thursday. And then what do we have on Friday?
Don't even.
Is Black Friday. And, it always cracked me up that here, I've seen memes for it for years where it's like on Thursday, let's be grateful for everything we have. And then on Friday, let me go buy the things that I don't have. Let me go, spend all this money for the things that I don't yet have. And it's just like, wait a second. You're probably still full from the huge dinner the night before in which we went around the table and said what we're grateful for. So now you can just go fill your homes and shopping carts with things you don't really need. And then the question is are those things going to really make you happy? Yeah, it's an interesting paradox and an interesting dichotomy within a 24-hour split.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I don't do Black Friday sales in my shop. I just don't. It doesn't align for me. This whole, need to go shopping after we've just spent one day reminding me to be grateful. So, one really cool strategy that I suggest, and this can be done for individuals or business owners too, is a really great strategy to send out Thanksgiving cards. Since people will send out holiday cards, but what if your business sent out Thanksgiving cards this year? What if you even personally sent out Thanksgiving cards this year, right? So you shift that and you send out your gratitude to other people and then your card shows up at a different time, which is great because everyone, doesn't get a lot of mail these days. And you're also focusing on gratitude. And you know what? You send a nice, card. I do make really nice note cards, but mine are not. Doesn't matter. If you send out a special card, like in November or in October, if you're in Canada, because our Thanksgiving is different, but that card somebody will put that on their fridge, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to put like their 25 Christmas cards and leave them out all year, but your Thanksgiving card might actually, stay on the fridge for a while because someone hasn't heard somebody be grateful for them, maybe ever.
So I love that so much.
Reminder.
So I never do holiday cards. I'm Jewish and, it always is a mix of, not everyone in my life obviously is Jewish. And so, what holiday do I send out for? Exactly. So I've always done New Year's cards and wishing people intentions for a new year, but I might switch it up this year and do a Thanksgiving card. I kind of love that. Thank you for that suggestion.
Oh, I feel like that's so aligned for you too, right?
Yes.
And it's like you said, it's like, you're Jewish, you celebrate different holidays than other people. So what do you send out? So, and that's the other thing is Thanksgiving doesn't have a religious connotation to it. It's not connected. Right. And again, there are issues with the holiday of Thanksgiving and what if you look back to what it stands for. So I just focus on, it's a day of gratitude. Yeah. These are difficult times that we're in difficult times where we're becoming aware of how we do certain things, how they affect other people. It's a good time, actually. It's a good time to understand that we're one connected world and that when we do something, it actually affects others. So why not send out your gratitude to others, right? Why not send that card and just show somebody, and I will say, if you're going to do this, or if any of your listeners are going to do this, be as specific as possible with your gratitude. So instead of just saying, thank you for being in my life, I'm so grateful for you, go to a time. I'm so thankful that you were there when I was going through a really difficult time in my life and you stood up for me, or just be very specific about how that person showed up for you in gratitude. Nobody is ever going to tire of hearing that that they are important to you. Yeah. And this even extends to how to create a culture of appreciation in your home. As a therapist, I do a lot of work based on the work of John Gottman, who's been scientifically studying relationships for over 40 years. And one of the hallmarks of couples who, what he calls are masters versus disasters of relationship, are the people who create a culture of appreciation in their home. And to simply just say thank you for the smallest of things. And couples get stuck on this. I'll ask my clients, did you thank your partner for taking out the garbage? And they're like, why would I do that? That was their job. Well,
because you can be appreciative that even if they did their job, it still benefited you. You were still appreciative of how they showed, contribution to the home and what that meant to you to feel like you had partnership in the home. Yeah. It's interesting. My youngest daughter is 15, and she always thanks me for making dinner. And she will just say, thank you, Mom, so much for cooking. And I got divorced 7 years ago, but she said she observed my ex-husband saying that from a really young age. And at first she was like, Mom, I don't get it. Why would Dad have said thank you for dinner? And then I realized, like, you put a lot of work into that, and it's something to be appreciative of. And, these are ways that we can be more in that thanks living and in the gratefulness of how we are acknowledging and appreciating the others in our lives on a daily basis for the smallest of things.
Absolutely. I love that.
It's so easily overlooked.
It is. It is. I've been doing a secret gratitude practice for my husband. So I have a note in my phone where I write that I am grateful that Dan did this. So I write it most days, and then I just write something like that he did the dishes, or that he took the garbage out, or he spent time with our daughter and they did a special activity. So I've been writing this since January, and we're at, right now we're recording this in September. And what it does is it reminds me to look for things to be grateful for about my husband. So yeah. I do my best to acknowledge, and like you said, thank him for the things that he's already doing that are technically his job, but really, who made it his job, right? Like, yeah. So, I agree with you that that's such an important thing to acknowledge and thank the people that are sharing our home with us, because they're the easiest to take for granted.
It is. Julie, I love this conversation. I hope the listeners got a lot of value out of it. How can they find you? And we'll obviously have these links in the show notes, but what's the best way to connect with you?
So my website is wakeupwithgratitude.com. So that's the easiest place to find everything you need about me. You search Wake Up with Gratitude. I'm all over the place with that brand and that title, because that's how I choose to live. And that's really aligned with who I am and how I show up in the world.
Thank you so much. Well, I am grateful that our paths continue to cross. And I was really grateful for the time that you spent with me today. And thank you for the beautiful wisdom that you shared in our conversation. I am appreciating you, and in this moment, the gratitude that I feel for the work that we're doing in the world. It's a lot of good, and people need more of a lot of good right now.
Awesome. I received that. Thank you. And just grateful to be able to connect with your community.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And for listening today, take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.